Welcome everyone to today's podcast. This is a special episode, episode 4 of a 4-part podcast. I'm super excited to have you here. And we are doing a podcast on this book written by my friend Mike, who's here with me. Welcome, Mike. So we're gonna talk about leadership for engineers. I mean, I'm working with engineers, super passionate about the topic. So when Mike sent me the book to review it and to read it, I said, yes, and after you publish it, let's sit down and give people a taste of what you wrote about. So that's what we're doing. This is episode 4, and I'll put the book over here so you see it, so you can search it and maybe buy it while you're listening, because it's full of a lot of cool stuff. So today we are episode 4. We're going to talk about surviving and thriving on a personal level as a leader. Super excited about this topic. Well, let me just recap. In episode 1, we talked about a successful transition from an engineer into leadership. In episode 2, we talked about those often missed tools for STEM professionals. In episode 3, we talked about teams and the human side of leadership. So today we're going to talk about you. We're going to give you some tips of how to, well, get you a better person and a better leader. So before we do that, I want to invite you, Mike, to tell us a little bit about you and, refresh those who are just logging in and then what you're up to.
Oh, thanks, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad we survived 3 episodes, and now we're on the 4th one. I'm an engineer by trade, as I may have shared with you before, electrical engineer. Graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and then I was fortunate over my career. I was with the same company for 33 years after a couple of other false starts, and grew into an executive role. And that was the genesis of me developing the book. So the book was the foundation of what we're going to talk about in this podcast. And there's going to be some snippets from the book. There's 33 different individual topics, and we're going to touch on a subset of those in this podcast. And I'm thrilled to be here. Thrilled to be here.
And I heard that you're also doing a class. Let's give our listeners just a taste of where else they can go to learn more.
All right, let me bring up one slide here if I could, and I'll share with the group. This class, as I said, is going to be, or this podcast is a sampling of material. The class that I'm going to be teaching is 2 6-hour days at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee in their continuing education program. It's going to run May 15th and 16th. If you are getting some rewards from sitting through these podcasts, this is the long version. This is 12 hours of same but even more informative information. 1.2 CEUs are your reward. It's in person and live stream. So if you get a kick out of what we're talking about, Andrea and I'd love to see you virtually or in person in Milwaukee at this Becoming an Engineering Leader class.
Yeah, May 15 and 16, so you still have time to sign up. So listen and commit. That's my invitation to you. If anything striked you, got your curiosity going, set up for Mike's class. All right, Mike, let's dive into episode 4, thriving, surviving, and thriving as a person, as a leader. So, in last episode, we talked about how you can work more effectively, how to structure that dream team, how to inspire people, how to reward people. But what about that self-maintenance part? I mean, we can't reward people if we don't reward ourselves and if we don't help ourselves grow. So based on your experience, what are some challenges for leaders? It's important to keep your sanity, keep your health, and grow as a leader. So what advice do you have for us?
It's you said it better than I could have. You're of no value to your organization, the people that look up to you as a leader, if you yourself aren't happy, healthy, thriving, motivated, inspired. And there's roadblocks. Earlier in episode 1, we talked about the pros and cons of leadership, and there's challenges in anything in life. There's challenges. One of the primary challenges I mentioned in the cons side was the ability to manage stress. And I took a class early in my career at the University of or Marquette University in Milwaukee about stress management and being able to deal with things that come flying at you when you're in leadership. So let me bring up the PowerPoint here and walk through a few things that I think you'll find valuable.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, just want to second that learning about stress and how to manage stress, it's such an important and overlooked skill that I encourage everyone to, like a good engineer, go dig into it, find the data, find out what it's about, and how you can use that information.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it gets tossed around a little bit too much sometimes, and oh, I'm going to manage stress. But I got to tell you, it's a different world when you're in leadership. It's not linear. We talked about the volatility, the turbulent flow versus laminar flow.
Yes.
So my advice to you is be an engineer when you get faced with stress. Be an engineer, and the first thing an engineer does when they encounter a problem is they disassemble it. They take it apart into pieces. They look at each piece. If there's a machine tool that is in a stamping plant that's not performing right, they think about it from input to output, stage at a time, and what can they do to improve each one of those stages. So let's engineer our way out of stress here. And step number 0, and I say it's 0 because the others don't make any sense. If this one can be the place you solve the problem, assess probability. What are the odds of this thing happening to me? If you're going down the jetway on an airplane and you're worried you're gonna auger in and this is going to be your last flight ever, the odds are statistically minuscule that that could happen. So stop worrying about it. Easy to say, I understand, but at least come to terms with what really statistically, what are the odds of this happening? Then clarify timing. Is this a pre-event stress? Like, boy, I gotta present a bad project plan to a customer and let them know we're 3 months behind schedule. There was a famous individual, name escapes me for the moment, who talked about building a trophy case. He swam across every one of the Great Lakes, and he said to succeed in something is to reflect on that which you've already succeeded in. So before you go march into something, build a trophy case and say to yourself, I can do this. I've done worse before. I can do this. Then there's event-based stress where something just happens to you and there's no planning for it. My cousin Mary got married years ago, and we're at the dinner table waiting for the best man to give a speech, and she walks up and says, "The best man doesn't want to do it. Can you give a speech before my dinner?" I had 11 seconds to prepare a toast for my cousin and her husband. I got through it. I grinned and bared it. It wasn't profound, but uh, I I, uh, I took back her wedding gift. I'll tell you that. That's for sure. Then there's post-event stress. How many of us have said have gone had something bad happen to them, and then for years, months, weeks later, oh wow, my God, that was terrible. Why did I do that? Or what happened? Forget it. You're an engineer. This is ancient history. Log it on. Log it to the books and think about something else, like puppies or something. And then determine influenceability. Can I change this thing? Can I influence it? Is there a way I can twist the outcome? Um, this one's easy for me to say sitting at my desk at home, but you got to choose your response. You can freak out when stressful things happen, or you can say, "Ooh, okay, let's get through this." And the latter is my recommendation. Figure out where it's coming from. Is this something you set up to happen because of your behavior? Did some evil forces, someone else, or some other thing that's out to get you create this? Or was it just fate? You've got some genetic disorder, and now you've got a disease you have to deal with. And then harvest the energy. I'll talk more about this in a little while, but apply the voltage, the adrenaline from this problem, and use that as fuel for the solution. And then I know this sounds trite, but learn from it. At least don't erase it. Don't say that never happened. No, it happened. This stressful thing happened, and I got through it. I'm alive to talk about it. I'm never going to do these things again, or I'm never going to let this happen again, or I'm going to set up some defenses. So That's important. In engineering terms, because who doesn't love a flow chart? Um, Identify the stressor. Is it a remote possibility? If no, think about something else. Define what timing it is, past, present, or now. If it is a future thing, think about what you've accomplished in the past and get through it, prepare for it. Can I affect it? If you can't affect it, you know, take your whipping. If you can change it or influence it, if you find out you're borderline diabetes and you can change your diet, you can take medications, do those things. It's a terrible, stressful situation, but affect it as though you can. Try not to freak. People are watching you. You need to be the leader. Try to just take that deep breath and say, all right, what do we got working for us here? How can we get through it? Identify the source, and then learn from it as you march on. One of the good things about stress is it creates energy. And you ever wonder why, for example, a lot of new world records get set during the Olympics? Because those people are pumped. They are
Yes.
shaking in their boots. They are stressed. Their adrenaline is at 150%. Is it all happy stress? No, some of it's terrifying stress. So I would encourage you to say, I've got a chemical reaction going on inside of me right now that I can turn into work. I can turn into creativity, energy, positive movement, and be successful with it. Manage the stress. It creates alertness. Uh, uh, Stress encourages the growth of stem cells that become brain cells. It improves memory, so you can recall exactly how miserable it is. And then when you endure and overcome these situations, you've got a confidence builder for next time. Back to my trophy case example. And
Mm-hmm.
then take that switch, that three position rotator switch, and switch it from going to a resistor and just creating heat and stirring energy for no reason to rotation in a motor. Create work and say, all right, now I've got tons of energy. I'm putting a team around me. We're going to figure out how to get through this situation. Again, I will fully admit, easier to say than do when you're in those situations.
Well, I'm just thinking it's super cool that if you're in a stressful situation and just think about your previous slide where it's the where you can do, okay, is it this, is it that, the flow chart. If you just get to that point, then you already are in the process of redirecting your stress because you're bringing some fun, you're bringing some humor, and yes, you are charging the battery and you understand that it's creating energy. And I mean, every story that you overcome, every stressful situation, moment that you overcome, it adds to your resilience story. It's a story that then becomes your leadership story that you can tell and inspire others down the road. So it's all connected. Just understand how these connect, interconnect, and then how to use it. But I love your visual with the batteries and then switching the voltage. I mean, so engineering. So, Mike, okay, so that's the logical part of stress. I mean, I understand. Yes, it does happen. And what happens in the body, that's all logical. But how did you personally do the recharge, how did you take some of the pressure off yourself so that or reduce some of the pressure in order to be able to then get the pressure up again? Just like you said, Olympics, we can just participate in Olympics every year. That's why they have it every 4 year. So give us a story of how you've done it.
Yeah, good point. There's the stresses I was talking about are point events, if you will, things that come at you or did come at you or will come at you that will cause you angst. Then there's a term I hate, and that's burnout, where it's just the sheer, it's not a thing, it's not an event, it's the grind. It's like every day I'm putting in 12 hours. I get phone calls on weekends. I've got employees calling me, customers. I got problems I'm solving around the clock. I'm just burned out. I hate that term burnout because most burnout is resentment. It is a result of being robbed of time that you would rather put elsewhere or energy you'd rather put elsewhere. I'd rather be at my softball league than in a meeting in South Florida in a conference room. But all that said, one of the things I strongly recommend is how to step off the treadmill. And what I mean by that is the importance of a vacation strategy and being able to get away from it all, if you will, for a little while. And it sounds easy. Oh, Mike, I can't believe you're dedicating slides to telling me to take a vacation. I've seen it done poorly over and over and over again. And I'm going to give you my 3+ decades of advice on getting away from it all. First and foremost, resist the incredible urge to bring the steering wheel with you. I'm on a board of a manufacturing company, and one of the hardest working CEOs I've ever met. I finally talked him into taking a vacation. Took his family to I think Mexico for 10 days. And the whole time he was there, he was firing emails at his team, checking in on things, making sure things were right, putting together tasks. And what he's proven is he thinks he's invaluable. He thinks his team will fail without him. And he thinks that they are not empowered to do things without his oversight.
Yes.
So he's not proven to himself that he has built an organization that can survive without his involvement. You got to set him up for success, and you need to make it a clean break when you do get away. Next, and again, this is going to sound academic, but I promise you, most people do this poorly. You got to alert the world that you're going on vacation. Uh, I worked my fanny off when I was working. I put in a lot of hours, a lot of time. I don't think I ever missed a vacation. I don't think I ever left vacation days on the table at the end of a year. I didn't do them all perfectly. I made the mistakes I'm talking about today, but I didn't miss them because that's what makes you feel like I still have a life. It may be on pause once in a while, but I still have a life. So my number one rule is ask your peers to monitor the fire alarm. Say, hey, Jerry, Andrea, I'm going to be gone for a while. Just keep an eye on things. I got a problem over here. This employee's not doing well. Just, I'm
Yes.
asking you, to sit in for me, if you will. And then empower and delegate. Guys, I know I'm usually on your back like crazy, but for the next 10 days, you're on your own. Get a hold of me if it's an emergency, but I'm going to trust you implicitly to get this work done.
Yes, but you can do it. So add that part, that trust. Yes, that I'm gonna be gone, but I have full faith that you are capable of stepping up.
Absolutely. Yeah, good point. Make sure they're encouraged, make sure they view this as a sign of trust and encouragement and faith. It's a good test, right? And at the end of it all, you'll see, wow, I work with a school here in Milwaukee, and the CFO went on vacation. It was a paternity leave. His wife gave birth to a lovely child, and he was off the grid for almost 2 months. And his second in command that I never met before really stood up, came to meetings, did a great job, overperformed because they saw this as their chance for visibility. You remember earlier in one of my earlier slides, I talked about how to get into management, become visible, and raise your hand. This is their chance.
This is, yes. So you're just understand as a leader, you're actually doing a really big favor to someone that you're delegating to.
Yeah, and what's the worst that can happen, right? Don't even think about it. Tell others above you that they can certainly call you and destroy your vacation if they want to. And I say it that way because you want to guilt them a little bit into, uh, I need to get out of here. I really need to get out of here. If you want to screw that up, give me a call. And then customers, whether it's an internal customer that we talked about or an external customer, let them know, hey, I'm going to be in France for a while. But if you think there's an emergency, feel free to call me. Sometimes knowing that alone is enough to have them not call you. So
I
I know
agree.
that from experience.
I agree.
So how do you do that? Number three, and again, academic, utilize auto reply in the voicemail greetings. When my buddy Jose was on his paternity leave, he had a voicemail saying, "I'm not checking voicemails. I'm off the grid. Get a hold of Mary," and it worked. It worked just fine. And he came out of that vacation, out of that. I don't know if that was a vacation with a small child, but he came out of that just fine. Everything worked out great. Depending on what level you are, there's norms in the company as to what you can and can't miss. If let's say you have a weekly organizational staff meeting or something that the company invites you to, you need to you need to decide, is it okay for me to miss that? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I can't advise you on it, but if you do start going to those things that even though you're on vacation, I've been in hotel rooms, I'm sure you have as well, on your computer, joining meetings on a vacation.
Yeah.
If you can avoid that, avoid it. If culturally you can't, it's unfortunate because other folks are going to need to as well.
Yeah, just be
Um,
respectful about it.
exactly. Now, let's say you're a dedicated leader and you still want to contribute while you're laying on a beach with a Mai Tai. Use that for creative time. Don't use it for tactical time. Don't use it for writing emails or sending messages. But think about on the back of a cocktail napkin, what can I do different next year? How can I affect customers differently? What creative things can I do while your head's clear of all the nonsense in your office? And lastly, let me warn you, and some people fall for this, knocking off early every Friday in summer does not qualify as a healthy sabbatical. People say, well, I'm working 4-day weeks all through the summer. No, that's not good because you ramp up and you ramp down your relaxation in a vacation. And you need a few days to decompress and you need a few days to get back on the treadmill. So I strongly encourage you to pull together that extended break. The last thing I want to share with you is beyond the vacation. And earlier I showed you this graphic where I shared with you in my world, my life changed as the decades went on, and I gave more time to the company and more time to leading others than I did to fun stuff for my family or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so this is episode 1, just for those who are watching.
Right, right, right. So that's kind of the bad news is you're going to make some sacrifices. Once you've got some stripes and once you've nestled into your leadership throne here, step up the delegation, step up the empowerment, learn about things that intrigue you personally. I started subscribing to different podcasts and newspapers and things that made me more involved in um, the world news, global geopolitical issues, things that I could use at work, but also were of interest to me. Revisit old friends that need your skills, revive lost interests. I used to bicycle a lot. Now I'm going to bicycle some more. Reduce yourself to the tolerable members of your family. Start being more of a resource. So uh, my good news is as time marches on, you can start reviving those things, still be in a leadership role, have as the mafia will say, you're the boss of bosses, let other people manage people and do the day-to-day work. It comes with accomplishment. But my point being, as you evolve to that latter portion of your career, it's not all doom and gloom. I think you can revive some of the things that are extremely valuable, and that will help you with your stress as well.
Yes, yes. I love that. Beyond vacation, think about your life as a whole, and don't give up on the things that you liked to do before you became a leader. And then also bringing the things that you always been, as you said, curious, intrigued about, and make room for it, build it into, engineer it into your life, even when you are a leader. Yes, because you are setting an example, and you're going to be the role model for your team and for your family and friends, that just because I got promoted, I'm in a high leadership position now, kind of my life ends, that it's all about work. So
Mhm.
don't be that leader.
Amen. Amen. Well said. Well said.
So Mike, what are you saying? Let's think about, okay, we went on vacation, we're back, and then we want to be a really good leader. So what are some strategies that you have found during your experiences that make a leader a very effective leader?
Well, one of the things that I employed was, and I talked earlier about the grind, where you're just churning through work year after year. You get the same, you put together a business plan, you meet, you look at your goals, you look at your people, and you're going through the same playbook year after year. Uh, one of the tactics I developed and employed is what I call the reset button. And that is intentionally knowing when to stop, take a breath, and think about doing things differently. It may sound at first glance obvious or something you might do already, but it usually isn't. Hitting the reset button means knowing when to pivot before you have to pivot. And the things that make this process unique and valuable is number one, it's an active admission that now would be a really, really good time to do something different. And I say active like don't just roll into something or let something happen to you. Say no. And I mean this sincerely. Close your eyes, shut the door, and take a deep breath and say, all right, we're going to stir the pot here. This is going to be an intentional change of thinking and action to disrupt the current trajectory or preserve it. And I'll share with you the 3 times I do that in life, but making it, for lack of a better term, a pivotal moment makes it more effective rather than it's just, well,
Yeah.
we're gonna veer off a little bit or we're gonna do this. No, stop, shake your head, um, and say this is a moment. And when do you smash that reset button? There's 3 times I think you should do it. When things are or are about to go very poorly, when there's failure in front of you, you got to say, all right, and I'm not trying to be negative, I'm trying to be realistic. There's going to be those times when it just hits the fan and you got to say, all right, stop. What are we going to do?
Yes.
Uh, the second is when things are going really well. And that's when people usually don't smash the reset button. Things are rocking, we're doing good, we're kicking butt, things are fine until they're not, right? And you look at any historical graph uh, of a S&P 500 stock, and there's going to be you look at um, Nvidia or something where there's going to be a cliff. There's going to be a point where something happens, it drops like a rock, and right up until that point, things were spectacular. If you can take those moments of spectacular and say, all right, stop for a minute. What do we got to do to preserve spectacular or avoid the cliff? Let's think about that now while things are going well. And then finally, when you are just simply fatigued, when you're plodding along, doing what you're doing, and you're just getting tired, and you can just feel you're not putting 100% into it. Stop and think
Yes.
about what. All right,
Yes.
this isn't good enough. This isn't greatness.
Mm-hmm. Yes. In a way, stop digging underneath you. Even if you're doing it slowly, just stop. Stop digging.
Yeah, right. So let's go into some more detail. I showed you this slide before. This is my career, if you will. Things that happen to either my industry, the supply chain industry, or things that happen to our company. The company's name was HK Systems and became Dematic. I shared this with you before. So when would a reset have paid off? Obviously, when we were at rock bottom, when things were just crumbling, or hopefully a little before then, push that reset button to get it back on trajectory. When things were going great, during the dot-com boom, during the supply chain boom, all those things that where things were just going well, how could we have made that last longer and been even higher if we would have stopped what we were doing and thought about change? And the other time is fatigue, when you're going along, things are just status quo. We're just on the line. We're getting a C in school, and we're doing okay. We're
Yeah.
making our numbers, but
Yeah.
how can we make that a huge spike? And sometimes on this graph we did, and the evidence shows for it. Sometimes we didn't. So let's go through in more detail those 3 categories. When there's a failure, when there's a disaster specifically, reflect on what just happened and clarify the reason. Did it happen because we goofed up something, or was it some insurmountable source of evil like a competitor or the marketplace or the economy,
Mm.
or was it fate? Something randomly just happened that's out of anybody's control. Um, Pause your ego because people with a high ego will say, I can blow through this. Yeah, maybe, but you need a plan. You're an engineer, god darn it. You need a plan. purposefully redouble your efforts, because when you're down, when you're beaten, that's the time to just say, all right, we're going to pull together. Like I said before, I think I told you I ran a sales organization for a while, and if you lose a giant order that you've been working on for a year and your competitor won it and you didn't, you just want to go out and buy a shot glass of Drano and put an end to it all. No, that's the time you get a pizza, you get six people in a room on a Saturday, and you say, all right, what do we do wrong? How can we never have this happen again?
Yes.
And that's tough to do when you're on the bottom, right? So
Yes, you do have to pause your ego. I agree with you with that on that.
yeah,
Take the
yeah,
blame, no, no, don't take the blame. Don't blame others. Don't blame yourself, but pivot and have that mindset of, okay, this is a great learning opportunity. Let's do it with pizza and on Saturday while it's still fresh in our mind and while we still have that emotional charge. I mean, you talked about stress and turning it into energy. This is that energy. This is where you tap into that battery.
yeah, absolutely. And a subset of that, Andrea, is purging the gloom. When you get that group together on a Saturday with a pizza after you just had a horrible situation, all right, let's talk about it. What happened? What's the effect of what happened? Uh, Now we're going to stop talking about it. We're not going to talk about that event from now on. We're just going to talk about making ourselves better. And you,
Yes.
you you smash that reset button with a 10-pound hammer. When things are going spectacular, when things are just rocking and everybody's just high-fiving each other, there's a golden opportunity for problems to infect. And we like, again, in the stock market, you see it all over the place where people are doing well. The Super Bowl, where one team is up by 21 points at halftime and they lose the Super Bowl because they got a little vulnerable and they started being a little too full of themselves.
Yes.
On top of the softening of effort that comes with success, or softening of focus that can come with success, uh, there's the optics of it all. Any resulting gloating could be viewed as arrogance. If you dance in the end zone and people are looking at you and say, "Hey, we did this, we did that." My old boss used to say, you get one chance to share good news, one chance. Hey, we had this really good thing happen. We finished this project and the margin went up, or we finished it ahead of schedule, or whatever. Great. We don't want to talk about it anymore. Congratulations. Moving on. And there's momentum in triumph that's rooted in self-confidence. Be careful not to let that lose the emotional adrenaline that you have. For example, I talked earlier about having stress energy going to the motor rather than the resistor. The same goes for success. Did you ever notice when you're watching tennis? For those that I don't play tennis much, but you get two chances to get the serve over the net. And
Hmm.
if you hit the net with the first serve, that's called a fault, and then you got one more shot. And
Yes.
unless you're really, really good and you're a pro, you're probably going to go a little light on that second shot, right? So, because you now have lower confidence in yourself. That's why people who do really well and who get momentum going in their success tend to have more success thereafter. So, make sure you harness that momentum and say we're gonna use what we've got to fuel further success cautiously. And then fatigue. This can come in any situation, whether you're working on a giant project, you and your team are designing a new app for a cell phone, and you've been working on it and working on it and working on it, and you just can't get through some challenges. And this is a pretty traditional graph or image I'm showing you here, that in the beginning you got all kind of enthusiasm, then you get realistic, then things happen you didn't plan on, and there's a point where you say, I'm done. That's the time when you're fatigued to say, we either got to cut bait and just give up on this thing, because number three, good leaders do know when to quit. If you're putting good money after bad, there's the whole concept of sunk costs. Say, look, we've put these costs into something. We're never going to get them back. Is this still a good investment of our time and money? If it still is, and there's still an opportunity for success, hyper focus, get back on it and say, all right, let's pretend we're at that despair point, but let's pretend we're starting our naive enthusiasm. and tempered realism. But I'm going to say it again. Point number three: when you're fatigued, that's the time to ask yourself, is this still a good investment? If it's not, it's okay to quit. I'd rather see you quit at something that has a low chance of probability of success or is a bad use of resources than we're going to keep going and keep spending. Like, what was the movie Tin Cup, where he just keeps swinging and swinging and swinging on the golf course and failing at once after another. So, uh, my advice is make it use that reset point as a decision point as well.
Yeah, because you do have a team behind you, so it's not just you. So, some have to think about those who you support, who are leaning on you, making the right decision. So, yes.
Yep.
Yes. Well, you brought up failure, and then that gets me thinking that the other side of leadership is when things just don't go so well, when there's some career setbacks happening. So tell me about your experience regarding setbacks.
Yeah. Well, again, back to that first episode we had together, Andrea, where we talked about the pros and cons of leadership. One of the cons is the higher up the pyramid you are, the fewer of you there are, and things get a little dicey at times. There's a higher and more focused set of expectations, and there can be career setbacks. I used the analogy earlier. If you're a welder, you could probably find a job this afternoon. If you're an EVP of finance, it's going to take you a while because there's only so many of those in Topeka, Kansas. So the worst kind of, and I'm not believing this is the last negative thing I'm going to talk about, but when you have to take a step back, and you probably will, there's more folks in leadership that step back than don't in their careers. Don't be crushed by it. Be saddened by it. That's normal. But here's my advice: if you should encounter a career setback, be cool. I have a dear friend. His name was Rich. We got acquired by a company, and the company had their own way of labeling people. He went from vice president to director, and Rich was by all means a vice president. We're now in a bigger company. They had a different definition. And he said, "Yeah, I'm just going to show them that I deserve vice president position." So he was cool about it, man, and he did. He went back and rose to greatness in the organization. If you are childish about a setback, it's gonna make it a little tougher on your trajectory forward. There's all kinds of reasons people take steps back in their careers in the leadership ranks. Sometimes it's a rite of passage, and it's not always your fault. Sometimes it is, and we're going to go through the reasons here in a little while. But some examples are our new department leader brought in his former management team, so I'm out. The acquiring company already had a director of procurement, so I'm out. Someone who works for me made a very bad decision, so I'm out. That's part of leadership, is you're accountable for the folks in your organization that might make bad decisions. Uh, I'm told my style no longer fits what they're looking for in this company, so I'm out. Style might mean performance, contribution, education, whatever it might be. So, being the engineer that you are or were, the first thing I recommend is you do a root cause analysis on the broken machine, on you. There's three categories, general categories of reasons people are no longer around. Number one, was it operator error? Did I earn this demotion or removal or whatever it is through my actions or inactions? That's a tough
Yes.
one because by
Yes.
now you've got a little bit of self-confidence and you've got some trophies
Yes.
in your trophy case. Number B, or letter B, was it lack of maintenance? Are the alternatives facing the company compared to me better fit for the company than I am right now? Um, that's one that you can influence cautiously, and I'm gonna help you through that in a minute. Or is it sheer abuse? This is an unfair result of meanness or greed or cronyism, like the acquiring company already had somebody, or not, that's a bad example, but somebody brought in a pal, somebody brought in a friend that's going to take my role because they're buddies and I'm not.
Yes.
Uh, my caution to you though is if you think this is an abusive decline in your career path, make sure it's not operator error and lack of maintenance, because sometimes things are characterized as abuse, but really you had a hand in this. You had a hand in this. So let's go deep on that B, lack of maintenance. This is one that you can work to avoid if you're smart about your career path. Uh,
And engineers are smart about their career plan.
Amen. Amen.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
let's,
right. Yeah, don't ever view a role in leadership as a milestone. It is but a launch pad for your next role in management. So you get promoted to manager, director, vice president, whatever it might be. You now have the responsibility to maintain that skill set and knowledge base and experience and wisdom at that level to propel you. Because if you get stagnant and the rest of the world doesn't, the alternatives start looking better. So at the top of this Venn diagram, and we all love Venn diagrams, you have a high overlap with the expectations. You're perceived as, compared to all the other alternatives for a particular role or a particular duty, you have a really good fit. Then something happens. Time marches on, and maybe the expectations grew. They now need somebody who's voiced in AI. They need somebody who's much better with social media than you are. Whatever it might be, the expectations grew. You didn't grow, but the alternatives started to encroach on the expectations, and they're a better fit than you are now, and you're on the outside looking in. Or your perceived capabilities declined relative to the changing expectations, and the growing alternatives are a better fit, where whether it be an influx of other people or whatever it might be, your capacity to match the expectations has declined, and you're on the outside looking in. So your responsibility to your career and yourself is to keep the you bubble as large as possible with increasing capabilities and skills, and making sure it overlaps the expectations. In leadership, no one's going to tell you how to do that. Well, your mentor might, and you might get some coaching from others, but there's no, the higher you are in the organization, the more vague this is. You need to use some initiative, take the schooling, take the classes, read the books,
yes.
get the mentors. You have to continue to add to your skill set, your wisdom, your experience to remain relevant. Um,
And understand that uh, maintenance is about continuous maintenance, is predictable, is scheduled, it's regular.
Exactly, exactly. You need to, but that's on your shoulders as a leader.
Yes.
It's you, and you owe it to your team to stay relevant and current. I had some great people I worked for and worked with in the company that they take night classes. I took classes from UCLA, from Chicago, from Duke, from Marquette. I took a la carte classes all over the country to fill the gaps in my knowledge base. Classes like the continuing education we talked about earlier. I took a bunch of continuing education classes to fill those gaps and keep my bubble as large as I could.
Yes. And then part of that is letting people know that you have done those. So it's again, it's a circle where you
Right,
let people
exactly.
know that I have gained this experience, took this class, I'm knowledgeable in this, so that it's visible that you are working on your bubble. Yes.
Right, right, right. Exactly, exactly. Yep. So, one of the things that you can do to gauge where you are compared to where you want to be. Earlier, you remember we talked about the persona, how you want to constantly be tuning the persona that you aspire
Yes.
to, and it will change over time, as we talked about. You need that feedback loop. Remember that goofy graphic I showed you where there's a feedback loop? You need a way to say, how am I doing on that which I want to be? And this Greek philosopher said, say first what you wish to be, and then whatever you do, do accordingly. The problem is people, particularly people in leadership that have high self-confidence and a high moral standard and a high belief in their own capacity, feel they're doing fine. I'm going to give you three methods to see how you're really doing. Number one, I'll call a snapshot, kind of low resolution. Ask others for their view on your behavior, your style, your effectiveness. It's low res. It works okay if you are not defensive. Good critics are people like your mentor, your manager. And for God's sakes, don't get defensive and punch them in the throat when they say, you know, you're kind of obnoxious, or you talk too much in meetings, or you're really not good at holding people accountable. It's a snapshot. The next level up of feedback loop is what I'll call the X-ray. And I've done this twice in my career, and it was gut wrenching and one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done, where you engage a professional corporate psychologist, and they get paid for this, and they come in and they do a detailed a formal individual assessment of you. Yeah, they ask you a bunch of questions, you go through questionnaires. It's an uncomfortable deep dive, and the results are extremely accurate and detailed. That here's your strength, here's some of the blind spots you have, here's where you need some help and some coaching. It gets shared with your management team to help you improve yourself. It's extremely powerful. The next level up, I'll call a high res 3D image, is something called a 360 feedback or a multi source assessment. HR departments can usually pull that together for you. And it is an opportunity for colleagues, peers, management, other people to anonymously give their input on you. So they're sent this scripted questionnaire on Mike Kotecki, and they go through and they say,
Yes.
what's your trust in this person? Do you feel how much effort they put forth? Countless questions. And then all that information from those, let's say, 12, 15 people get amalgamated by the organization that's pulling it together, this third party. And it gives you a pretty detailed script of how the general public views your performance in your universe, in your environment. You got to kind of throw out the outliers, because there might be one person who just doesn't like you, and they're gonna torture you, and they're gonna take a day off, buy a bottle of whiskey, and enjoy filling this out,
Yes, but
pulling the
you know that deep down, you know that that person doesn't like you.
right.
So
There's
it's
there
not
are
going to be unexpected what you're going to see.
right. There's some times when you can almost tell who, because there's the numeric answers, and then there's some opportunity to write a little text, and you
Yes.
you can tell. So you got to throw out the outliers, but you learn a lot. Like, wow, 14 out of 15 people think I'm not trustworthy. Well, I gotta work, either I'm not, or I gotta work on conveying that. So to me, that's a high res 3D image.
Yeah. Every time, and I've done this, I had clients who've done the 360, and then we did coaching on their leadership persona. There's always something that you learn. There's always something in your blind spot that shows up that you kind of thought about. Maybe you didn't have the words, you don't know how to put it into words. So something surprising, but positively surprising, shows up that will actually elevate your leadership once you choose to work on it and to accept it and then to take action.
Right. And you got to bury the ego. And there was an individual that worked for me that went through a 360. Results came back horrible. And he just blew it off as anecdotal, like, oh, these people, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm right. All of them are wrong. He had to go look for a new job.
Well, that's a big gap, right? It's if you're not willing to work on the gap, no amount of help, coaching, mentoring will help you
Yep.
because you don't accept it.
Yep.
All right,
Absolutely.
so we talked about setbacks and failures and how to become an effective leader. But how do you go to the next level? Like, how do you keep working on, like, you've been working on your persona, but how do you climb the ladder as a leader?
Yeah. Good lead in to my next point here. Um, you know, again, back to that graphic I showed you on closed loop control. There's you have to tune your view of your persona and what you aspire to over time. Uh, what I've done, and it's in far more detail in the book. I've segmented the categories of leadership into three. You've got emerging leaders. Probably a good bunch of them are listening to this podcast, right? There's the folks that are still learning, sponging up information. They're consciously incompetent. They don't profess to know it all already.
Yes.
They're pleasantly idealistic and they're growing. Then there's the accomplished leaders. They're the I don't know, the 70%. They're the ones you see that run companies, run departments, run task forces. They're accomplished. They've slain enough dragons. But they feel like they deserve their confidence level. Pretty good at what they do. They get the job done. And then there's this, I'm going to say 5% that are the enlightened ones, the ones that are no longer in need of stroking their ego. They're no longer in need of being powerful. They are powerful, but they're no longer in need of it, and they're out to learn, to listen, to share information, to pursue the greater good. They quietly make the greatest impact. They're the ones that are chairmen of the board of directors, the ones that are leading organizations and breaking the norms, rather than just fighting the fight every day. So in the book, I put together this detailed table of examples by category. So this first category is the emerging, the accomplished, and the exemplary. Let's take an example here. The emerging persona and ego of a leader would be willing to take on responsibility, be assertive. The accomplished would be confident. Hey, I'm pretty good at what I do. Why don't you guys line up behind me and watch carefully? I'm in charge. The exemplary leader reverts back to being humble. I'm fortunate to have done what I've done. I'm blessed to be surrounded by great talent, and I've got a lot to learn. You see the distinction there, where it's kind of a bell curve where I'm learning, I'm coming up the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty good at what I do, and then
Mm-hmm.
uh, I can do more. I can do better, and I'm gonna continue to sharpen my saw, as they say.
Yes.
Same goes for how they view relationships. The emerging leader thinks about what can I gain? How can this person help me advance? When I meet somebody in the lobby at a trade show, we exchange business cards, and I think, okay, what can I do with this relationship to advance my career? How can I use this person to move forward? Whereas good, strong, mid-career leaders are more symbiotic. What can we do for each other? How can we help each other? How can we make this a win-win, mutual success? Those that have graduated from that leadership ranks into greatness will think more about serving. How can I help this person? What can
Yes.
I do to this for this person I just met? Well, who can I connect them with? What can I help them with their career? What can I do to advance them? It's a fine line, and there's more examples we can go through in the class or in the book, but you get the point that there is this upper echelon, this upper strata that I encourage you all to start thinking about. It's pretty powerful.
Yes, yes. I mean, I love that we're even bringing awareness to these stages, because, you know, leaders don't talk about it, that they're, because those who are humble and serve, they don't talk about themselves as enlightened leaders. The accomplished leaders like to talk about themselves, and then the emerging ones are mostly seeing and listening to the accomplished ones, as I said, because the enlightened ones are staying quiet and in the background and creating impact by, well, a different way than being out and about and loud about it. So yes, it's important. I'm happy that you brought this up so that people at least have an understanding of and have a choice to then go through these different stages and understand that there's another stage after stage 2 that they can achieve and then work towards. So thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
bringing
yeah.
it up. Now, what about some softer personal elements that you encountered along?
Yeah, we're gonna put a bow on this discussion here shortly, but I wanted to spend a little time talking about the goodness and the personal side of your career and your life, frankly. We've gone through 3 3/4 episodes now talking about things from a business standpoint that will help you be more effective and successful and accomplish things and use your time wisely, on and on and on. But frankly, at the end of the day, and you know what I mean by the end of the day, at the end of the day, you need to take inventory of the, the the goodness you did, the rightness you did. And I'm not going to get all churchy on you here, but my point in this is uh, modeling a forecasted look back. And what I mean by that is, I used to call it well, I still do, a hospice report card. For example, whenever I'm not sure what to do next in my career, I'm faced with a tough decision, I ask myself, what actions would the future me want to look back on favorably when I'm in hospice? So if I got two roads I can take, which one am I going to be most comfortable with and proud of when the day is done? And have I adhered to the values I stated? When I set my set points for my most recent management persona, and I drafted that, am I holding to the soft qualities I promised myself I would? I
Mhm.
said they were vital. I said it was important to be um, uh, compassionate. I said it was important to be nurturing. Am I doing that? Am I? It's important to be balanced in life between my work and my career and my life. Am I doing that? So number one, it helps me make decisions. Number two, it helps me adhere to the values I said I was going to adhere to. So here's what a hospice report card would look like. And again, I'm thinking about what I'm going to think about when I'm in hospice. Okay, so it's a bit of I call it a forecasted look back. But
Okay.
did I anchor my self-esteem on my power or my purpose? Did I take the high road when I was given the choice? Who's going to reference me as their mentor? Am I glad I took all those work calls when my wife and I were in Paris? Did I strive to enhance my legacy or my results? Was I at least as good of a parent, sibling, friend, offspring, or partner as I was an employee? And on and on and on. You get the point, right? It is all that 3.5 episodes we had about being good at what you do. Do those, please do those. But periodically think about, am I going to be proud of this? Am I going to be proud of this at the end of the day? So just food for thought. Don't mean to get morbid on you, but food for thought.
No, I don't think you got too morbid on us. And it is powerful. I'm in the same belief that it's very powerful to have a report card like this, to think about that moment, because the end will come. You will stop being a leader at some point, and it happens to all of us. So let's not make it unique to you. It will happen to me, to you, to everyone. That day will come, and there's a whole book about when you are on your deathbed, what do you regret? So don't don't be that person who regrets most of his life. I guess that's the short takeaway that I would suggest. But work on it, engineer your life so that you will have less setbacks, less rejections, and less resentments. And yeah, I love these questions. They really put things in perspective. And then your other point I want to emphasize, live your values. If you have the values, I had once a client who kept saying family is number one value. But then he brought home work, he worked at night, into the night, over the weekend, missed his kids' sport events, didn't support his wife. And we really had to have that conversation. You either change your value because you're obviously not living your value, or what. So I think it's very powerful to have that point where people make their decisions very intentionally. Live your values if they are yours. And as a leader, I hope that you have values that you're living, because again, you're empowering, inspiring others, and they're looking at you. So no, thanks for sharing.
No, it
Well,
was great comments.
Mike, we're getting to the end, and I wonder if you have any closing last thoughts for us.
I do. I've got uh, two final punctuations here. Uh, this could have been my very first slide of the very first episode. Maybe it should have been next time we do this. But Leading other, and I alluded to it, but leading others is a big fat deal. It's not just a promotion or a role or a new business card or a title on an org chart. The responsibility you are inheriting when you become the supervisory layer of other human beings is immense, on a personal and professional note. When you're a welder, when you're a doer, and you or mechanical engineer, you are accountable for the quality of your weld and keeping your tools clean. When you're a leader, you're responsible for delivering on the group's objectives and delivering on your personal goals and budgets. In addition, you're responsible for the results of your team and their successes, failures, growth, career direction, job satisfaction, indiscretions, engagement, compliance, behavior, loyalty, culture, their joy. Do they go home at the end of the day and kick the dog because you screamed at them in a meeting? Do they go home at the end of the day telling their kids uh, how wonderful their job is because they got awarded a free Amazon gift card because they did a project ahead of schedule? You have immense responsibility about the lives, not just the accomplishments and the goals and objectives of your employees. I can't understate that, but if you're going to take one slide from this presentation and pin it on your wall, this is the one I'd put up there. And lastly, uh, keep things in perspective. If you look at the whole timeline, and Andrea kind of alluded a little bit to this about perspective and prioritizing and making sure things are in balance. In the 200 and some thousand years of all humankind, your life is a speck. It's just a little sliver of a sliver of a sliver in all of humankind. And in that time frame of your life, there's a period where you're pretty good looking, and there's a period when you're not incontinent, and there's a narrow period where you're reasonably smart, and there's a period of time when you've got a few dollars in your pocket and you're doing pretty good. You're probably somewhere in the middle of all that right now. My point is, don't forget the journey. Don't forget to enjoy the journey. Have fun at what you do. Have a few laughs along the way. Keep things in perspective. You'll be more effective at what you do, but you'll also sleep better, and you'll smile more. And that's my final takeaway.
Well, thank you, Mike, for closing it on a note of fun and humor. I'm sure you noticed by now that Mike is full of fun things. And this book, let me bring it up here again, is such a fun read. I mean, you can talk about serious topics enough and bring in humor. So why you laugh? And Mike has accomplished that. It's so fun. Again, I highly recommend it that you get it. You're going to learn a lot. It's going to make you think. It's going to elevate your leadership, and I believe it's going to elevate your life too if you choose to follow some of the things that are in the book. So on that note, I also want to thank you. If you watched us over 4 episodes, thank you very much. If you just tuned in today, there are 3 more episodes that we have recorded, so go and watch those as well. But either way, thank you. Thank you for your time, for being here. And Mike, if people got inspired to connect with you, how can they connect with you?
Oh, I'd love to hear from people. If you have any interest in starting a conversation or giving me some feedback or advice or whatever it might be, or you need some more thoughts, you can reach me at mktacticalleadership@gmail. The letters MK, as in Mike Kotecki, uh, tactical leadership, all one big long word, @gmail.com. Love to
And
hear from you.
we're going to have those in the notes as well. So um, as you heard, and just a reminder, if you want to deep dive into the book with Mike, he's going to have a class mid of May. We have the info. We'll have it in the notes too. There's a slide at the beginning of the episode. Check it out. You have everything that you need in order to commit to your growth. So I'm inviting you to do so. So, Mike, this was so much fun. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving your time to us. And want to say a big thank you in the name of those who have listened over 4 episodes. Thanks for sharing your experience and the stories and what you have learned with us so that we can inspire someone to step up their leadership, to be that enlightened leader, and to really impact the lives of their teams. So again, thank you very much.
Oh, I'm thrilled for the opportunity. I'm flattered to be part of your initiative and had a great time doing it. Thanks everybody for your attendance.
Thank you.